Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. Dang it. I was gonna do the Transylvania, Dracula voice thing. Anyway, this is
Too late.
too late. This is Bottom of the Beaker, the weekly show about the design, ducks, and strategy of Keyforge, everyone, and I mean everyone's favorite unique deck game. My co host this evening is Quick Draw, the coleslaw king of the Northeast. That's right, cabbage and carrots for this man, my friends. I don't know, had a nice ring to it, so I went with it. But I'll be honest with you, Quick Draw, welcome, obviously. I'm
Hello.
much more excited to introduce our guest
Fair.
because our guest gave me a free pass to use any word that ends in oos to call him tonight. So, Quick Draw, in the lab tonight, we have Loosey Goosey Brucey with the Juicy Caboosey. Welcome, Bruce.
It's an honor to be here.
Most of you guys might know him as Moosemandude, so welcome to the show.
Excited to be here. Excited to bring all the uses to the lab.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I really thought, JT, the intro for Bruce here, I thought was going to be like, how to put this right, like sort of a slight to me, like me being like the Whirlpool guy, right? Like I brand myself as the Whirlpool guy. No one has done better with a Whirlpool deck in a Vault Tour than Moosemandude has, and that is something that I think you wear that badge very proudly, don't you?
I definitely take pride in having whirled the most pools on stream at a GG event.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the Philly Vault Tour, the first Vault Tour of the
first
Philly,
one,
of
first
the
Alliance
GG
Vault
era.
Tour.
Yeah.
So we went to this Vault Tour Quick Draw, and we were like, "Oh yeah, Alliance is happening." Okay, like we weren't super interested. And then you should have seen the fire in Quick Draw's eyes when he was like, "There is Whirlpool shenanigans happening, Whirlpool shenanigans happening on stream in Alliance right now." He was just like, "What?"
I'm pretty sure I was playing a sealed pod at the time, and I immediately told my opponent I needed to step away, and I went back behind your table and watched a few minutes of the game. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
Yep.
sure that actually happened.
yeah. That's some magic. That's some cool stuff right there. Applaud the creativity for sure. And there was not one, but there were two Whirlpool decks, at least two Whirlpool decks at
There,
least.
there were only 19 players. I think 2 Whirlpool decks is the total amount of Whirlpool decks there. But
Holy moly.
both made it to top 8
So
It's awesome.
meta was 10% Whirlpool.
for that one event. Yep, 10%
I
Whirlpool.
should have played Alliance that day.
That was wide open field. You could do anything under the sun in that field.
Oh man,
Yeah.
is that right? Were there no restrictions at this point, or was there a restricted list?
I think we had a restricted list, but nobody knew it was good. So you could.
Mm.
Since then, we've gotten so refined at Alliance. There's Whirlpool just gets outclassed too fast now.
Yeah, it's a different one,
It's a shame.
different beast. But these were Winds of Exchange Whirlpool decks. So Winds of Exchange likely had no restrictions on it yet. I'm
Yes, this was the
guessing.
first Winds of Exchange G event.
Right, right. Because we were all like very impressed at the folks who cracked their Winds of Exchange Archon decks the day before and sealed, and then rolled those in the main event. And you were doing not a similar thing. I think you came with this prepared, but you were
Yeah,
yeah.
I had my game found pledge, and I had to build the best alliance I could from that. And luckily, I had that Legacy Pincerator just sitting
I was
around
going to
to
say Legacy
add the
Maverick
spice. Yeah,
Pincerator.
well, it was an Antiquities dealer Pincerator.
Sure, but
So
like we can't sell it short. You know, it's so much cooler to say a Legacy
yes,
Maverick.
Legacy Maverick Pincerator. That's right.
That is super cool. Sending those clerics over just to collect immediately. Awesome.
That's right.
Awesome.
Oldest trick in the book.
It's so good.
I
So,
love doing it with Hadroth's Wall, and Corpulent Collector is a good way to do it.
Yep.
Get the wall out there, drop the collector, and capture 7 or 8. Pass it over, and it's immediately yours.
mhm.
Yep. The second game I played was against a Worlds Collide deck with multiple Tribune Pompatus. So we had like 7 power clerics getting, bonus for all the amber, and that made it hard to kill a Pincerator, but that was a very silly game.
That's very silly. I like it. The shenanigans are great. That's like feels like a beautiful kind of like wide open field.
It
Yeah.
was the pure construction joy of Alliance, not having the pressure of somebody's just going to March Generosity kill me on turn 3. When you get
Yeah.
DT'd into the ground on turn 3 with a spreadsheet like we saw in Baltimore this year. We hadn't gotten that far yet.
Yeah.
You got to watch out. If you turn your back on Quick Draw, he'll DDT you into the ground. Might not be turn 3, but it'll happen.
Yes, I wish.
Awesome.
Well, you mentioned that Whirlpool is unfortunately outclassed at Alliance tables now. I think it's safe to say the same can be said for Archon, but um, there is one format, at least, where
That's
Whirlpool is
true.
not outclassed, and that's kind of related to what we're going to talk about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, so you had the idea for this topic, Moosemandude, a while back, and we thought it was pretty awesome. So very excited to talk about it. We're going to be talking about balancing mechanisms in Keyforge. So things like handicap systems and other ways that you can even out a game or matches, as it were. Yeah, so super, super excited to get into it. I know I've been enjoyed a lot of the different varieties of this in Keyforge and experimented, I guess, in other games. But before reading some of what the notes you had, I probably would have said I wasn't a super big fan of them in other games. But I'm curious, I don't know, to see where we go, too.
Yeah, so Bruce, can you kind of tee us up here? Like, what were you thinking? Like, what is your goal with the handicapping mechanisms in Keyforge, and like, what do you look at?
Sure. Yeah. Keyforge, first game that I've ever played that has that first card game, at least, that has the built-in handicapping mechanism in chains, and it's you see it in card balancing a little bit, but using it to create a more enjoyable gameplay experience by trying to balance between two players, between two decks, that's something it's a thing that doesn't get done in card games. So talking about how Keyforge does it, talking about other games, we'll kind of journey through other things that have used handicaps to improve the play experience, and by the end we might appreciate handicaps a little bit more for what they do for us.
I sure hope so. I enjoy them. If you're watching on Twitch right now, we do have a matchup kind of displayed here that we're going to get into a bit later. This is one, Bruce, that you had kind of examined very closely to see like what, how balanced could it be and which mechanisms do you use to balance it and kind of what is the equilibrium. So we'll talk about that later on too. But I also want to give a shout out before we get too far into this to a lot of the past content that has talked about this in the past. Like, Bruce, you and I talked about this beforehand. So much of this stuff is like some of my favorite content, and I loved that you called this out as like these kind of cornerstone pieces. So we'd be remiss to not mention them. The one that is one of my favorite pieces of content of all time is Call of Discovery, episode 63. We've talked about it here before. It was their interview with Richard Garfield, and he has a lot of information and nuggets in there about why there are handicap mechanisms in Keyforge and why he loves them so much in other games in general. Huge, great episode. Give that one a listen. And then Help from Future Self 263, which was the Dev experience before Dev became a permanent host on Help from Future Self. Another fantastic episode where Dev talks about the Dark Amber system that he had created and designed for it. Another great one for handicaps. And then finally, a classic, Bouncing Death Quark, episode 43, Chain Bidding and Keyforge. Another really good one. It was one of the earlier ones about balancing mechanisms in Keyforge when that was like, the one big podcast early on in the Keyforge days. So glad you called those out as some resources here. Everyone should go check them out as well, and we hopefully will expand on them here tonight.
Dope. I gave the Call of Discovery episode a re-listen actually just today, and was super just, I don't know, blown away again. I feel like I've listened to this episode 3 or 4 times at this point. So kudos to the Call of Discovery folks for getting that, making that happen, getting Garfield on to talk about those things. But yeah, lots of great nuggets, and like what an awesome kind of outlook on the game, and just refreshing to embrace the imbalance, which is something that I don't know, your gut is always to be like, yeah, of course it should be balanced, but to hear Richard Garfield talking about it and saying like, no, I really prefer to not have this like homogenous space, and where everything's completely balanced, and you can actually have these like intentional uphill battles and moments of overcoming things and creative ways to find an equilibrium point without actually just tweaking everything out to being the same move every time is pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah, so he talked, and we're not going to get into detail, everyone should listen to it, but he just talked about how Keyforge was made as a game that was supposed to be unfair, right? And the handicapping mechanisms are an integral part of this game, and we should be embracing them more. And like you said, Bruce, hopefully by the end of this episode here, hopefully everyone has a bigger appreciation for them. So let's get started. Let's zoom out a bit at a high level. Why don't you talk a little bit about some different types of handicaps that exist in games right now outside of Keyforge?
Sure. And before we get too far, I guess we should define a handicap. Given the textbook definition here, a handicap is either a race or contest in which an artificial advantage is given or disadvantage imposed on a contestant to equalize the chances of winning, or it's an advantage given or a disadvantage imposed, usually in the form of points, strokes, weight to be carried, or distance from the target or goal. So we are intentionally modifying the way that things work to have a race finish as close and as interestingly as possible. The right to game Keyforge, that's what we want. So, and
I really like that second definition too. Like weight to be carried, those chains are very heavy.
that's right. I think that comes from horse racing, where they would actually just weigh down the horses to make them run slower.
Did they weigh them down with chains?
Entirely possible.
Oh, interesting.
And some of the different things that have used handicaps, Go is, I think, the most prominent game, where I don't have a lot of experience with Go, but I do know that the weaker player will be given extra pieces at the start of the game as a way to give them an advantage on the board, and that is clearly defined based on the tier of the player. So if the difference is 4 tiers, they get 4 extra stones.
Yeah, I think actually there were regulations on jockey weight, like how light your jockey could be in a horse race. So if your jockey weighed in underweight, they'd have to put stones in their pocket or something. I don't know what they did.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, but you're only like, oh, this guy, he's got to, we got to bulk him up to even things out for sure. Yeah,
didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go.
Golf is another big one too, though. Like I haven't golfed since I was a kid. It is way too stressful of a game for me. But it is not at the pro level. There's no handicaps in pro golf, but
right.
At the amateur level, handicapping is a very common thing that's very accepted in the game of golf among friends. And I think that's another great example too. And how does it work in golf? Because, like I said, I haven't golfed in forever and never actually bothered to think about it.
Yeah. So golf handicaps are modifiers to your end score to then make your average score match the par of the course, is kind of, I think, the general goal, which is an interesting difference from like Go. Go, you're going to give a handicap based on the match between the two players, and golf is a more general one, kind of like chain bound, how you're trying to balance a whole field of players at once. Balance out the scores in that, like on a course, you want them all to kind of wind up the same, but you don't care about one golfer versus another golfer, because that's just not how the golf tournament would work.
Do golf handicaps, maybe you don't know this and that's okay, but because each course is different, right? Like
Yeah.
Some players may be a stronger player on a certain type of course. Do handicaps in golf take that into account?
I don't know if they are that nuanced, but I would guess no.
Yeah, because that's what I think of with like different matchups in Keyforge being like
Sure.
they're all unique, and this deck might be bad, but it plays really well into this other deck. Kind of like how a golfer may play really well into this course. Maybe it's like a longer course or a shorter course, or something like that. I wasn't sure if that was
You're really good at playing in the sand, and this course has lots of like sand holes or something. Yeah,
something. Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know.
I think you typically would have a handicap for golf, right? So you're like, yeah, I'm plus this or whatever, and you'd have to use that as your modifier. But maybe at your home club, there is sort of this other kind of like handicap leaderboard or whatever. That's an unofficial one for that that course. But as you're traveling around, you'd have just kind of your own, that one number that goes with you for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Though,
And as I understand it in golf, your handicap is not like your average score really. It's based on your best. Like what is your average best, so to speak.
ooh,
So you can't just kind of like sandbag your average to bring your handicap down. It's really looking at like on your best day, like what can you be expected to do, and that is, I think, used as the basis for your handicap.
that I'm not sure of. Maybe Mooseman here knows. I I'd guess it's some sort of rolling average. Maybe removing outliers if they're being fancy. But I'd bet good money you're kind of trying to avoid sandbagging, and there's some some measures in there. But
There's definitely something to
right.
prevent sandbagging. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like the handicapping. I did read the Wikipedia page on this.
oh
by
well,
the way.
well
There you
then.
go.
It is so like that's what I mean. Like it's based on your best. So like if your best performances
Mhm.
are like certain scores in golf,
Mhm.
which are numbers. That's probably the best I can give you right now. I don't know anything other than that. It takes your best ones, and that's kind of like used as the baseline for your handicap. So if you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna like, you can't sandbag because that like bad score that you throw in there isn't coming close to your best scores, and the best scores are the ones that are used for the handicapping.
Well, quick draw. You're saying you can't sandbag, and I'm saying you can only play the long game, the long cons.
It's yeah, sure. You could play the long con.
So this is interesting too. I'm going to sow this in as a seed for later. Golf has a couple layers to its handicapping or balancing mechanisms that may be applicable to KeyForge, right? So there is this like, yeah, adjust the final score thing, which is your handicap, your golf handicap. There's also different tees that you can hit from on a given hole, right? So you walk up to hole number 4. There's maybe going to be 3 or 4 different colored tees that you can hit from that are going to be different distances from the hole. So if you're really good, you're going to hit from the black tees way, and the ones that are farthest from the hole. And if you're, I don't know, the red tees, is that the white tees that are the closest ones? Blue tees, there's like 6 colors. I'm not sure.
I think red tees is the closest one.
Red tees are the closest ones.
On standard course.
Yeah. So if you're like quick draw or eye and you need to like just get really close to that hole, then you go up to the red tees. But yeah, if we walk in and Bruce is a monster, he's going all the way to all the farthest tee, all the farthest
all the way to
tees,
black.
all the way to
Yeah.
black.
If you want to throw in disc golf too, they also move you can have multiple hole positions too to kind of change the target of where you're trying to go.
Ooh. So this is the spooky season. I'm going to give you a tangent. B-Hawk's going to appreciate this. This is for you, B-Hawk, if you're listening. My idea that I haven't put together yet for a Halloween costume is to get a like portable disc golf goal for like I can wear on my head and like run around and have somebody else trying to score while I'm running around. But we'll see if it happens. I'll let you know. There'll
You
be
could
pictures.
just give away frisbees all day and just play frisbee golf all night.
Good. Maybe it'll happen. We'll see. Anyway, I took us off track as I want to do.
Yeah, we got to control JT. Sometimes
Circle
JT
back.
gets out of control. Circle back. So you defined handicaps. Let's talk about some types of handicaps because as you talked about in the definition, there are different ways of handicapping. So what are some of the different types of handicaps then?
So I would say there are 2 general buckets. You're either giving more resources to the player who's weaker, or you're giving less resources to the player who's stronger. So in KeyForge, change is the main thing that takes away resources. You get less cards, you can do less, but you can give all kinds of more resources in theory. Mostly we see that in like Dark Amber, like the Dev podcast episode talked about. But you could give out anything in theory. You could give out damage, you could give out stuns, you could just give out straight up Amber, and all of those would help boost the weaker deck to be able to match the strength better with the stronger deck in theory.
I know reverse chains is one that's been talked about a lot too in the past, where instead of having one player draw fewer cards in their hand, you have another player drawing more cards in their hand to start the game.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way of doing it. I think these are all considered handicapping through game objects. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yep.
And does KeyForge have a possibility of, like, the other one you mentioned in here is handicapping through end score modification? I don't really think that's applicable to KeyForge, but maybe you've thought of something and how it could be.
I think I feel like I've seen some discussion on the Sloppy Labwork server from Aurora mostly of bidding how far you will get in the game. So I as the Beaker deck just have to make 2 keys, 3 amber, and I have achieved my victory condition as opposed to having to get all the way to 3 keys. That would be a way to change how much you're expected to perform without changing the way that the game will actually play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ran a bunch, or I guess I should say she ran a bunch of experiments a while back that I participated in. It was a lot of fun. Along the same vein of one that was called, I think we talked about when she was on, Gambling Den was the name of the format or the name of the experiment. So, and this is kind of how it worked. Everybody submitted their decks. There was a benchmark deck to aim against, but once all the decks had been submitted, the participants would then vote on how they thought the various matchups would play out, right? So let's say the 3 of us are playing in a round robin style. We'd have 6 matches to bid on, or to choose a winner for, and your end score was adjusted based on how well you were expected to do, based on that, based on the kind of bidding of your peers. So if you walked in and everyone's like, oh yeah, JT is just like the heavy favorite, and you actually win, like, well, you don't necessarily win the event. Your kind of end score is knocked down. So you're kind of like rewarded for overperforming based on how folks you thought you would do going in. So I don't know. That was kind of what came to mind, but I don't know how you would do that in a competitive setting. Gets tough because you gotta like I don't have impartial folks weighing
Yeah,
in.
it's definitely better for either like a league structure or like a casual. You get your chain bound and easier to set the expectations you know everybody. So
Yep.
Here's our spike player. Like if they win, that's what we would expect. But if somebody else gets second place, like that is at least as good. They're overperforming their expectations.
Was the Gambling Den format about evaluating the matchups, like looking at the Archon cards and voting on which one, or is it about the players?
Matchups. So you'd see this Archon card versus this Archon, and we'd send that match, like T-Pants, you'd send that to everybody, and then everybody would say Deke is going to win, and everybody votes. And if everybody votes for Deke and Deke wins, then you just don't get any points for that win, or you get fewer points for that win. But if it's the other way around, you get that upset, you are heavily rewarded, right? Yeah. And I forget how we did it. Maybe you just didn't vote on matches you were participating in, or you voted only on matches from the other pods. So there wasn't any like king making happening, that sort of a thing. But I can't remember exactly how it worked, but that was the general idea. There was some sort of like structure around the games where such that you ended up playing essentially unmodified, unhandicapped actual Keyforge games, but then your final scores were adjusted kind of like golf handicap system ish. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to try out. I forgot about the discussion from Aurora about like, kind of, I guess Bruce, you said it was like bidding on the win condition. Is that right?
I recall something like that. Just the idea of instead of changing the way that the game is played, changing your expectations for an individual game. So you get to that third game and you say, well, I can take the weaker deck and I can output 2 keys, 3 amber, as opposed to getting all the way to the win and kind of fighting it that way. That way, you've actually seen 2 games from both decks. You have a much better idea of what that third game's going to look like because you've just seen it twice. It's just kind of a different way to go about it. And I don't know what the exact nuances of that bidding would look like, but a way to get at the changing the way that the scoring is done at the end of the game.
I'd be very interested in giving it a shot. Like that's, I think, pretty interesting because I mean, you know me, I love chains. I love adaptive. I'm not looking for, a different thing, a different. Yeah, I don't see adaptive as a broken format that needs to be fixed, but I am still interested in trying new things like this. Um, I'm also a bit curious why we think adaptive has like remained, when there's so many I guess detractors is the nicest way to put it
Yeah,
of the format, and there's
people
so
that
many other
like
things
doing
out there.
stuff. Yeah, I think part of it is that chains are built into the game. That's just everybody understands chains at a base level and how they work. And there are enough of us that like having to do more with less resources that are willing to keep playing adaptive and taking those chains and making the most of it.
Mm. Yeah, I don't want to jump the gun too much, but I think you said something really interesting there that's worth homing in on. Yeah, doing more with less is such a rewarding feeling, though it's totally understandable how some folks would chafe at not being able to do as much as they'd like to do, right? So you have this like experience playing your deck normally, and you have kind of an expectation of like what playing your deck feels like, and when you do less than that, you can understand it being sort of this chafing feeling. But I was going to say, yeah, not jumping the gun. Here's the part where I'm going to jump the gun. I feel like there are kind of a bunch of buckets that you can talk about for racing game handicaps, kind of like drawing that back a little bit. So we talked about this more resources over time. That's cool. I think there are kind of 2 flavors of that. There's like, I'm going to give the underperforming deck, the underdog deck, a head start, and that's like moving to the closer tees, right? but you could also say, hey, I'm going to give you rocket boots, and that's like reverse chains, right? And there's kind of the flip side too. You can make the favored deck step back, like have to forge for 8 instead, or what have you, and all of a sudden you have to race farther, or you give them chains and now you're running slower. So you can kind of toggle both the distance you need to run and the speed with which you're able to cover ground. And like maybe those are kind of some broad buckets, but I find myself gravitating more towards the ones that slow down the favorite deck versus boosting the underdog. I think a big part of that is maybe just preferring some of the slower games where you've got to do more with less, and feeling like some of the fast games I think are getting maybe a little too fast. So like pushing towards that feels tough to me, but pulling back to a slower pace, I don't know. That's kind of what resonates more. But anyway, you said doing more with less, and that made my heart sing. So I wanted to make sure we didn't let it go by without calling it out. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me too of one thing that Not Tonight said is, I forget her exact words, but just, enjoying bad cards, right? Like trying to maximize the value you get from bad cards is an enjoyable part of the game for her and a lot of other people. And I think doing more with less is sort of in the same vein. I think some people aren't interested in playing with bad cards. They're like, well, this deck's got like 2 bad pennies, and they don't like that because they don't like having to deal with these bad cards. But I think other people see that as like part of the challenge and part of the fun of Keyforge, right?
Yeah, discovering the scenarios where bad card's good is definitely something that I get a lot of enjoyment out of. If I'm playing a game of Blitzler and I've got my like Bumblebird, Niffle-Ape, and a Flumph on the board, but that's actually I just need to sit here and just start turning them sideways to reap. Like I think that's really cool, and
sure.
something I look forward to.
Totally.
Yeah.
Blitzer, my goodness, you must love chains when you're playing Blitzer, and especially if you're bidding if you're bidding on it. Was there three gateway to this? Or is it 3 or 4?
Yeah, 3 gateway to this, double Sukuno, so you will chain yourself as you play. But it's also a little chain impervious because the normal game is like I'm gonna play 2 cards here, 2 cards here, 3 cards here. Like it's just clunky by default, so the extra chains don't make it more clunky. It's just always clunky.
So Blitzer says, "Joke's on you. I was going for 2 card
Yeah,
chains
this was the
anyway."
plan all along.
Interesting. That's making me think about some of my old favorite decks that are a little clunky for adaptive. I had one that it was a mass mutation clunky deck with like 27C or something like that. I had stopped playing it in adaptive a long time ago. But I should maybe reconsider that because this is a great format to be able to bring those kind of decks back, that old favorites,
For sure. Nothing better to shed chains than just sitting on a gateway and knowing, or sitting on a Sukuno is probably better. Like I can sit on that for 4 turns and let them build a board, and then I've shed 4 chains and I can still answer their threats.
Yeah.
Totally.
Interesting.
I'm curious. I don't know what made me wonder this, but did you come to Keyforge from any other games, Mooseman, or was Keyforge?
I was a dedicated Magic player for 5 years, and then random spring break in college, I was at the local game store, and one of the guys said, "Hey, try out this new game, Keyforge." This is, I think, March 2019. And I got 2 decks, and I've been playing it ever since.
Awesome.
And you quit Magic immediately?
I still own Magic cards, but I play a lot less Magic now.
Yeah.
Every time I'm playing, I'm just thinking, I could be playing Keyforge right now. That would be more fun.
So this is one of my theories about Keyforge. Not Magic converts. Converts not the right word, but folks who get pulled into Keyforge with a MTG background. I feel like that experience of like you start playing Magic and you just have a bunch of cards and you make a deck and you're like, I'm gonna do the best I can with this pile of cards, and then you get to a point where you're like, I'm a competitive Magic player. I'm gonna actually go out and get the best cards I can and forget about those clunky ones. You do that for a little while and you're like, you know what? It was kind of fun playing with some of those bad cards, but like I can't feel good about myself sitting down at the table in a competitive setting, bringing them. So Keyforge is kind of like, no, you must. And they're like, all right, that's great because I wanted to, but I couldn't do it,
100%. And glorious experience in Keyforge that I enjoy is having those bad cards and figuring out what their best moment to shine is.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So let's get into some different some other Keyforge handicaps. I know Cloggin in the chat was kind of getting excited as we went through some of these ideas, and we're trying to get the juices flowing for people. We're not going to get into Dark Amber. I think we'll leave that to DevDev. DevDev's explained it very well in Health and Future Self. It's a really cool idea. He even has like graphic assets made that you can print out and use them as guides and game aids. Really well done. Super cool. So we're not gonna go into too much detail on that one here. But what are some other Keyforge handicaps that you've considered or explored maybe in the past, Bruce?
I technically you can look at any component that exists in a Keyforge game. Like you could change the way it works, and I think the big problem that you run into a lot of them, like I threw out damage and wards as ideas, but you just get farther and farther away from what really matters. At the end of the day, you're going to talk about how much amber you made because that is what wins the game. And the more removed you get from that, the less of an impact it will easily have on a matchup. And so it gets harder to use as a handicap. But for an individual match, it may work great. If I've got two board decks, but one start on the other, and I give that weaker deck a bunch of damage to help fight the board, then I can probably actually balance that matchup out pretty well. But conversely, if I got a racing deck and I board, who cares? I've got 30 printed amber. Damage isn't going to make any difference in that game.
Mm-hmm. But there are other things that you can look at. Like one of the other ones you listed here is one that I've actually tried before: removing cards from the deck before the game. Aurora and I did a little format where we played a matchup, and then I think we played it just like a regular adaptive best of three. And then for the third game, rather than bidding chains, we bid on how many cards you would let the other person purge from your deck before you started the game. And the number was shockingly small. I forget the matchup that we played. I remember the deck I played, but I don't remember. It was considerably better than the other deck. Would have been probably a 6 or 7 chain matchup, maybe a little bit more. But when you're talking about purging just like X cards from the deck, I think we ended up like 2 before we were like, yeah, that's too many. I can't. If I lose more than 2 of these cards, I can't win the game. And it's targeted, so it's like you could pick the very specific cards, which made the bidding a lot smaller. And I enjoyed it. I felt that it made the game a bit more in control, but it did have the drawback of like essentially changing the Archon. Like if you're removing a key charge from a deck, it's a totally different deck. And so it did get away from the decks, I think, a little bit, but in my opinion, it did a pretty good job of balancing the matchup.
Interesting.
So Quick Draw saw a bit of one and looked at his Whirlpool deck, and he's like, I have to go home. I can't do anything now.
Well, that's the trick with Whirlpool, as you know, Bruce, is like the deck has to be able to do something even if they have artifact control, right?
Yep.
So
absolutely. That was probably the fatal flaw of the Alliance deck. If we're going to circle back to that deck did the Whirlpool thing incredibly well, and if it did not have the Whirlpool in play, it did not. It just had to piece together some half play creatures and hope that they get to turn sideways.
But even in the early days of Alliance, I seem to recall people being like, "Oh, it's Alliance, you got to bring artifact control."
Some people didn't. I mean, it was the Wild West first vault, and there wasn't enough R to go around.
Yeah, I've heard different takes on this, and even now for Archon, there's like, there's going to be scary artifacts, pack your R, but also turn 3 or 4 is the fundamental turn. Is there really do you have enough time for the R to matter? I don't know. You could make cases for both, I guess, but staring down Bruce's Whirlpools and Clerks, you'd probably be happy to have that auction off. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So another idea. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just laughing in the chat saying R is a scam. Yeah.
That sounds like something Murph would say. Am I right?
The well-known Murph take.
Yes, exactly. I had another thought. Just as we're talking about this now, you talked about the further you get away from Amber, then the more difficult it is to like find something that's relevant. But I feel like there could be a lot of like permanent artifacts you could use as balancing mechanisms, like a speed sigil perhaps, or I don't know, some other whatever artifacts are either double-sided or maybe something that gives you a benefit where you could say, okay, yeah, like this person gets to play with a speed sigil in play the entire game and use that to balance. Like, are there other things like that that you ever considered? Or
it's definitely an interesting idea, and I think the balancing part of that is doing it in a way that generally works and doesn't just if you say at the outset of the I don't know the match like speed sigil is the thing we're going to balance around, you're going to want to bring a deck that will then get better with speed sigil. And I guess that's true for the other resources. Like at some point, you're going to try to maximize that opportunity to balance the deck or to take advantage of it on one side. And that's a kind of a point of friction with trying to get a nice 50-50 matchup is people just trying to maximize whatever you're going to penalize them with, they're give them as a bonus. They're just going to take that to the nth degree and try to get an edge that way.
Yeah, that is true, and there needs to be some sort of a mechanism for keeping it balanced. Like you're not just going to like allow one person to take advantage of that. Like speed sigil is one example, but you could have maybe like 10 different artifacts.
Yeah,
And I think the other important aspect here though is that if we're not talking about a competitive sense, then you need to have some kind of a social agreement between the players to not take advantage of things. Or
for
like
sure.
don't just bring a deck that like completely abuses speed sigil. Or the players have to be of the understanding like, yeah, I just want to play the deck that's my favorite, but they also have to agree like, but we want this game to be close. You have to you have to both go into the matchup where you don't have the mindset of I want to beat the pulp out of you. Like you have to be like willing to succumb a bit to a more competitive experience for both sides.
Mm. I know folks will chafe at the idea of randomizing it, but that's one way to kind of do it. Kind of what you were saying, Bruce, where yeah, maybe you don't have one artifact that you can plan for and say, okay, we're playing heavy subsidies meta. I'm gonna bring my my like six, I don't know, scaling steel type decks and just laugh because you can't get above 6 to forge ever. Um, but if it's like, yeah, there's a new one every turn drawn from the deck and it replaces the old one or something, you get a boon, or something along adventure kind of style decks. Keyraken sitting on your back, giving you a boon every turn. I don't know what it is, but yeah.
I wish I remember where I saw this now. But someone did come up with a format where you're bidding on like I think up to 9 different benefits that are
Mm.
afforded to a deck. Do you remember
Hmm.
this, JT?
I remember. I can't remember who it was. I remember seeing it. I want to say in the Sanctimonious discard. It was laid out in a grid, and
Yeah.
I can't remember how it worked exactly, but I do
you're
recall.
you're essentially like you have these 9 benefits. Like this one says like once per turn you can gain an amber, or this one says like once per turn you can like destroy a creature. Like maybe they weren't that strong, or maybe they're a little bit stronger, but you would be bidding on how many of these benefits you would be willing
Hmm.
to play with or give your opponent. And so
Interesting.
like you'd get to a certain point where you're just like, okay, like three is I don't want to give you any more than three, or any fewer than three, maybe. So like you'd agree on a point, and then the player would choose which of these different benefits they wanted to insert in. And so like maybe you could do something similar with these double-sided artifacts. To be like, yeah, here's a speed sigil, here's a curia, here's a whirlpool. Like I'm gonna let you choose any three of these like 10 artifacts I have listed, and I still think that I can win the game.
I like the idea of a bunch of how many draws from the random boon deck you get, sort of a thing. That's pretty cool. I don't know. That could be worth exploring. Interesting.
And maybe a little segue here, JT. You're going to appreciate this one. Maybe there could be some creator cards that are being released at KFC that could be used as balancing mechanisms.
Quick
These
draw.
little benefits.
You're not allowed to reveal that yet.
I didn't. We joked before because there are some rules where I'm not allowed to say certain things, and I don't remember what those are. I know that JT's wrong. I did not misspeak. I know that, but I don't want to say any more because I might say something wrong.
Okay. Well, no, you're right. So we'll take a quick segue. Okay, sound effects to the segue here. And at the risk of boring Bruce for a minute. Yes, there is going to be. We're participating in this very cool Creator Cards program at KFC 2024. I've got got a post up on the old sloppy lab work notes section up on stream for folks to look at here. I'll drop a link and we'll share it in the show notes. But yeah, these are global modifier style cards, so very much in the vein of double-sided artifacts. So there could be something to do or something to be said for using these as sort of a balancing, as part of a balancing scheme. I don't know, maybe if you collected a whole bunch, you could flip through them or bid on how many that you were able to apply. I've even got a little bit of a teaser down the bottom. You can see the card. There you go. Full redacted glory.
I don't know if you have the stream up, Bruce, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I've got
Yeah.
All right, so this is the quiz for Bruce. All right, this is a global modifier. Think double-sided artifact type thing. What would you do if you were making a sloppy lab work double-sided artifact card? Putting you on the spot here.
And we're not allowed to tell you if you're right or wrong. We're just gonna enjoy this.
I think if we're gonna go simple, anytime anybody discards a card, they archive a card. I think it should be something as simple as that.
All right. So a global autoencoder.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Heard it here, folks. Tune back
All
in.
Yeah.
Excellent. I like your style.
See if he's right.
I like your style. Cool. Well, segue over, or return segue, I guess. There you go.
Yeah.
And
And we're back.
we're
That
back.
kind of did feel a little dirty. It did kind of feel like we just did an advertisement in the middle of the show.
Kind of did,
Yeah.
We'll fix it in
Yeah.
post. We'll fix it in post.
No, we won't.
Nope.
Well, I think the point is that there are many different ways to think about handicaps in Keyforge that we haven't been done. Many can be done at the casual level. Many have been done. The Dark Amber one is probably the most well developed one that I've seen. But I think the sky's the limit, and I think there's so many other things that could be explored out of this.
Mm-hmm. I'm very excited. I haven't tried the Dark Amber one yet. I'm very excited to give it a try. My worry with it, and I'm totally stoked to give it a try regardless, is that it is one of those let's push the speed of the game to the higher deck as opposed to slowing it down, which doesn't mean it can't work. It just wasn't on my default list of go-tos. But yeah, curious to give it a shot, and very excited to see some alternate approaches to balancing, getting some momentum. So that's awesome to see. Had some cool ideas in the chat too that I think are also worth exploring. So things like putting restrictions on some of the other, I won't say resources, but resource stockpiles, if you will. So rather than saying you I don't know, have to forge at 8 amber, you say you can never have more than 8 amber. Those are horrible number examples, but you stop the burst deck from going above 10. You say no, you're just capped at 8, right? Or you're capped at 4 creatures. Let's say 6 creatures for the Pokemon fans in your battle line, right? So if you get to 6 creatures, it's sort of Quixel Stone in effect. Can't play anything else on your flanks or on your battle line. I don't know. There's some things in there that could be fun to explore, but I don't know. Maybe we'll talk to the ghosts. I wonder if they've had any thoughts around the coffee table when we're at KFC of how they could implement some of these things if they've given any thought.
I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know. They focus so much on Archon Alliance and Sealed that the age-old problem with Keyforge is there's too many formats, right? But one of the things that Garfield said in Call of Discovery episode 63 is that you can never tell someone else what the best way to play Keyforge is, because there are so many ways to play, and there are so many different types of players. So who are we to say yeah, this is the best way that everyone should play? It's because there's not one thing.
What a great episode that was. I know I said it before, but I really appreciated Garfield's take on balancing in squash, handicaps in squash. I've played a lot of squash, so I was just really grinning ear to ear listening to him talk about it, and have not really ever played any handicap games in the way that he did. So this is a completely different experience. And at one moment he said something too where he was like, oh yeah, and a lot of folks are resistant. Even I was resistant at first to playing handicapped games, because you get this feeling when you win of well, it wasn't really a deserved victory because the other player was disadvantaged, or what have you. So you get this sort of hollow feeling. He's like, it wasn't that at all. Actually, you walk out from a game, and when you win, even if the better player was disadvantaged, the difference was now you felt like they were actually trying to win, as opposed to when you're playing a non-balanced game with that player. Like in squash, it's very apparent which player is stronger, and if your opponent is not trying, you feel it, you feel it, and like that doesn't feel great. So that was an interesting take, because I have the same sort of feels of like, yeah, I don't know if I want to play against a person who's taking an advantage just for the sake of making it competitive. That feels like a knock to the competitiveness of the match. But it really resonated with me when he started talking about how, now we're in a situation where both players are actually having to like give it their all to win, as opposed to, we get to say there were no disadvantages in play, but really, one of us has to then swallow that, their opponent didn't have to try too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about making them sweat in squash, literally.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
You a squash player, Bruce?
I am not a squash player. Definitely not. Did not fall into my sports journey.
Great game, worth trying. It's been often called called physical chess, and I've heard from a few folks that Keyforge is the card game equivalent of chess. So there's these like 3 games in the chess family that are all interrelated. Is it coincidence? I don't know, but pretty great all around. Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with Keyforge being like the card game, chess card game. I'm not sure about that.
So I want to say this would have been, well, in relation to opportunity costs and, I won't want to put words in folks' mouths, but I can see where they're going. Yeah.
We lost Bruce for a second, but I think Bruce is back.
I think I'm back now.
Okay, great.
Dope.
So we did have this matchup that we wanted to talk about with you. But is there any other like more higher level handicap stuff that we did not hit on yet that you want to talk about?
think we got it all, unless we want to talk in it like trying to balance for like a chain bound, because we talked mostly about matchups and other games where you're trying to balance as a whole group of people, but we've tried that in Keyforge with chain bound events, and a lot of people say they want it back as a way to have locals work.
Yeah, I think the chain bound events people want back because it gave you something to accomplish and you on a weekly basis. I don't think people wanted it back as a balancing mechanism, because I'm not sure about your store if you played in chain bounds back in the day. But when I did, the player that won every week would just bring a different deck every week and win again anyway. And
Sure.
the chains really never came into play. So I don't see chain bound as a balancing thing. I just see it more as like a weekly store leaderboard essentially, or
It's possible that we're chaining the wrong thing then. Maybe we just need to start chaining players instead of decks. And then you get that effect a little bit. The better players will get penalized somewhat. Force them to work harder to keep winning.
Yeah, so you can incorporate the player in there. That's a great idea. You can also, you could also say this is a problem of incentives as opposed to a problem of chains as a balancing mechanism, right? So if your incentive is to win the event regardless of what deck you bring, then yeah, I'm going to bring an unchained deck that's great and just keep cycling through those. But if instead I'm rewarded for winning with a heavily chained deck, like now I'm going to start sticking with one and trying to drive its chains up as much as possible. So I don't know. There's kind of a couple prongs to that one, and I think that you could shift some of the incentives around, and all of a sudden it looks like it's a better balancing mechanism. But yeah, either way, I agree with you. There's a big component of this, which is just like, yeah, give me a reason to keep showing up for these weekly events, and that was a big draw for folks.
So Bruce, do you think that in Ghost Galaxy's 2025 local organized play plans, there should be something in there for balancing mechanisms as well?
I think it would be an interesting idea for them to touch on. The idea of having the good players restricted or some way to incentivize new players to feel like it's a fair fight, besides just say play sealed, I think would be a nice touch from them, giving us a way to bring our favorite pet decks and have new players happy to join in the experience, not feeling too out of sync. But if I had to take a guess on it, I do not think that will be in their pitch. Whether it should be, they might want to look into it.
Yeah, I think it should be as well, but I do think at the same time it might be a bit more than they could chew. I think we would to not beat around the bush too much. I think we would just be happy to have anything for local
That
organized play.
the bar has never been lower.
Yeah, and I think incorporating a balancing mechanism into that might just complicate it a bit more, as much as we would like to see it.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a tough thing to thread the needle on as well. Like, if you get your balancing mechanism kind of program wrong, you just turn off a lot of people. you know, I don't know how successful. Well, well, leaving that aside for a moment. Yeah,
I'm not gonna say anything. Then is that your cue for me? Like, quick draw, don't say anything.
you know, we could radiate some chaos, I suppose. But I don't know. I'd be curious to see some data on how popular the chain bounds were. I mean, I guess we could look at chains on registered decks to get a rough sense of like volume, but then I don't know, it'd be maybe tough to back into what that represents as a portion of organized play that was happening. You probably make some.
you have to filter out Chainbound from Vault Tours
And
somehow.
primes, but I don't know
However
if we can
that
do
math
that.
works, that'd be tough.
Yeah,
Those
I'm not sure if that's tracked.
those you could probably get reasonable ballpark, and then you just got to do subtract some numbers. But I don't know. It'll be an interesting experiment. Maybe we'll see if it's readily available. Scrape the old master vault for that info. Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, Bruce, was there anything else?
That was all I had for that.
All right.
that
So, this next segment here is a really interesting experiment that you definitely put a lot of work into. We have proof of that. And you're just looking at these two decks we have on the stream. JT will obviously drop them in the show notes. One is your name deck, Moosemandude Brain from Winds of Exchange. Excellent
right.
name. 10 out of 10
out of
name.
10 name. Uh-huh.
And then the other one is an AOA deck, the Gang Leader that undermines sincerity. So why don't you talk to us about what your experiment is here and what you worked with and what you discovered?
Yeah. So the goal was just to take two decks and find the balance point. And really what that turned out to be was taking two decks and figuring out what actually is the disparity between them in an unchained matchup. And then using that as a comparison for our kind of chained guesses to see if we can see a change in the matchup. Like if I applied 9 chains to this matchup, does it look different? And the two decks that I picked, the Moosemandude Brain 10 out of 10 deck name. Gang Leader is a deck with chains on it because it was played at a Vault Tour. This is my Vault Tour Richmond deck back in 2019.
Awesome.
Which was a sealed vault. So,
Wow.
And this was a top 16 deck.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. I played a few games with this, and it's got some ability to rush for sure. But that's very impressive. Top 16 with that. How many? There was probably a big vault in 2019 then, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I do not know the full number of people, but it was a nice full room. That's for sure.
Very cool.
So these, I mean, obviously namesake deck, awesome name, and deck that you played at a Vault Tour. What is that kind of what drove you toward this particular lineup, or was there something else?
Yeah,
like
these were two decks that had good stories, and then we'll just figure out the matchup because if you pick any two Keyforge decks, the matchup is going to be interesting. So that's how we got.
It's going to be different, right? Like
that's
it's different than anything you've ever played before.
The keys in the matchup are always going to be different with two different Keyforge decks.
That's so interesting because I looked at these two decks when you sent them out, and I was like, oh, I like this one, and then I looked at the other one, oh, I like this one too. There's actually a lot of interplay, and they both have some nice foils to what each other's doing. So I kind of thought at first where you had like handpicked a matchup where there was kind of like back and forth interplay, but that's cool. That's cool. Just naturally like interesting matchup happening here. Yeah.
That's right. So yeah,
I only played
two
games.
Yep.
Yeah, I only played 2 games with these, so I'm not an authority on it. But you played how many games with these?
I played 40 Unchained games, so that we have a proper sample set of how do these two decks match up. So, and at the conclusion of those 40 games, we can say conclusively that Moosemandude Brain has about it's going to win 4 games to 1 from Gang Leader. So it's about an 80-20 matchup. It's a favored matchup for Moosemandude Brain. And when I was doing it, I gathered more than just did it win or lose. So I kept track of the keys, the amber left in pool, the amber captured on creatures, and then whether the deck got to reshuffle how many times, and if it mulliganed. So a more elaborative view of how do these games actually play out, or what is our end state when we get there, to be able to see, like, yeah, you win 32 games out of the 40, but are you doing that by a lot? Are you doing that by a little? How are you doing it? So that's what I was trying to gather here to understand.
And so of the 40 games, you said Gang Leader won 8 of them, and I'm going through here now, and 2 of those 8 games, it held Moosemandude to 1 key. So
Yep.
While Moosemandude is favored, I mean, we had a little bit of a debate earlier, like 80-20, is that a massive disparity, or is that like kind of a close enough-ish matchup? Like, how do you see that?
It's an interesting question, and so much of our talk about Keyforge comes from like 1, 2, 3 game sample sets. It's hard to say, what is it, a 60-40, is it an 80-20? So from playing these 40 games, a lot of these 80-20 games felt near unwinnable for Gang Leader. Like Moosemandude would just Brain would have all the answers, but you could easily put together 3 games where Gang Leader, I would say Gang Leader is like a classic tempo deck. When I think of tempo and Keyforge, I think of Gang Leader that undermines Sincerity. And it would just be able to put together the right combination of bouncing creatures full of Captured Amber and like lining up the There Everywhere, Save the Pact, wipe the board at a crucial time, where it would be able to get out ahead, and maybe it does it fast enough. The Moosemandude just hasn't gotten its pants on. Like that is another way that the Magic, the range of ways the Magic can play out, very broad. So, and as I got better, I got to see more of the nuances in the matchup and what the kind of key cards were as well.
I have to say, it's kind of funny hearing you talk about the deck using your own name.
It was a choice. It was a choice.
That Moosemandude brain. It's like, Oh, so I'm glad you mentioned like learning the decks as you went. Did you happen to kind of compare the first 20 games to the second 20 games and see if there was a shift, or did it kind of feel more or less consistent?
I didn't do a hard comparison, but if you look at the last 7, I think, just total domination from Moosemandude Brain. And at that point, over the course of the journey, I think there were a couple lessons that I found. The first one was Moosemandude Brain has 2 Rant and Rives, which has an Amber Pip, and then if your opponent has 8 Amber or more, they lose half. With Gang Leader trying to race, if you ever got Rant and Rived and it took 4 Amber from you, that's a huge penalty. And so learning to balance bursting but not bursting above 8 was key to getting the maximum performance out of Gang Leader, I think. And Moosemandude Brain makes it a hard challenge because it, on top of the 2 Rant and Rives, they're brutal if they hit, has a bunch of dink and dunk, like I'll lose 1 here, capture 1 here, to make it really hard to stay right at that perfect spot of 7. But that's where you always wanted to sit.
Yeah, totally. Looking at these decks initially, you know, the 18 to 13 pips kind of stands out at you. And then you've got things like Ronnie. So you're like, oh, I really feel like I'm going to be generating Amber much faster as I just play my cards with the Gang Leader. And that's going to be good enough, especially if you can dodge those Rant and Rives. But yeah, getting hit by 1, and even if it's, I mean, yeah, and you say, yeah, managing to stay right at 7, but sometimes they've got a couple captured Amber, and it's almost impossible to sit right on that cusp while also managing the Amber that they've got on board that they can hand back to you. And that one Rant and Rive can just swing it and kind of negate that Amber from hand advantage. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that was definitely a key. And one of the other, Gang Leader being a tempo deck doesn't have the resources it needs to properly answer everything. One of the big things it lacks is hard creature control. So the 2 big creatures in Moosemandude Brain are in Saurian, there's a Faust and there's a Senator Brackus. And if those stick on the board, boy, that's going to be a good game for Moosemandude Brain. So
Mm.
trying to line up the removal and, more importantly, the creature fighting to get him off the table um, was something that I had to figure out how to do uh, most efficiently to be able to keep Gang Leader in the matchup and give it its shot at winning.
Yeah, I think part of that is understanding the creature control that Moosemandude has, because such an important part of the gang leader's plan in that way you describe it is like keeping those sanctum creatures alive so that they can just fight off a Faust or a Brachus with a single fight.
Yep,
Um, Moosemandude doesn't have a ton of ways to remove creatures itself, so it's important to make sure that you use your fights wisely.
that's true.
Um, and you
That
and I talked about this
Cermeros on the other
too.
side really matters for something that Moosemandude has to worry about is, can that Cermeros get tucked behind Sanctum Taunt guy, and
Mm,
then how do you get it off the table? It's a 4
yeah,
power, 2 armor Sanctum card. Good luck.
yep, that's
Mhm.
totally true. And then there's also things like was there healing blast. So even if you get some damage on it, like if you're trying to
Hmm.
whittle away at it turn by turn, they could always come through with a healing blast. There is a
There are
protect the weak.
Yep, there are 3 Darnas in there too that can
That's
absolutely
right,
heal if
Darnas. Yeah,
it comes into it.
very
I
interesting.
count, yeah, if each of those Darnas is worth a pip, then Gang Leader has 21 pips in it. And like 18 is a lot, 21 is
Yeah.
a lot.
And then there's Ronnie,
Um,
which is another one.
there's
Mhm.
Rani, yep.
And
Swindle can
then
kind of count maybe.
Swindle. Yeah, I think you can count Swindle for one. That's what I did
Mm,
actually when I went through this, going through my
yep,
estimation. I
Mm.
counted Swindle as a one, and it came in handy for me in the games that I played.
sure.
Definitely a good one. And then the other trick that I really liked was the Song of Spring on the Glimmer. So just play the Glimmer, get something back, Song of Spring, the Glimmer back, do something else, and that kind of helps to set up the one of those permanent forms of removal you talked about, which is the They're Everywhere and Save the Pack.
Yep.
Um, Playing that Glimmer multiple times in a game is pretty nice.
Yeah,
Mhm.
playing Gang Leader, figuring out what to Song of Spring back is interesting. In this matchup, Glimmer is the thing you want to Song of Spring back.
It's
But
yeah,
uh, there are matchups where you're just putting the Darkness back in because you could have got 2, 3 creatures with damage on them. You just want to draw those Darkness again and again and again. And part of the problem with Gang Leader is that it's hard to get damage on its creatures. And so that Legacy Ancient Bear thing is very good at having a point or two of damage on it, which is
Hmm.
pretty helpful because you can
Sure.
actively fight into it on those untamed turns.
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Probably not replaying the Flaxia for value too often is my
Mhm.
guess. I really like, yeah, I really like having that there everywhere, and even the whistling darts up against the researcher. And you're like, yeah, I've got these two, but maybe with some glimmer of recursion, timed right, you can dodge the waves of researchers. We see 13 for Moosemandude Brain, estimated token generation. I didn't feel like that much, but if it lands right, you can get overwhelmed, and just one turn, even two. I mean, yeah, can be
You just got to
brutal.
stick a Grand Gord, and your board will expand and
It'll
expand.
get there.
With
hmm,
the yeah,
yeah. So I actually just went straight into this looking at chains. I went straight into chain and kind of estimating what I thought, and I actually underestimated at first the number of chains that Moosemandude would need to make this one a balanced matchup. And so the first game I played was just 3 chains, and Moosemandude won fairly easily. And the second game I played was 6 chains, and I actually found that the gang leader was able to like really come through pretty hard with 6 chains. And I think it was a pretty strong draw that I had, but it made me feel like the equilibrium was somewhere around 6. But I think you had a different conclusion.
I did have a slightly different conclusion. I think if I were looking at it just the 2 decks, I would probably land around 6 or 7 as well. But if I take the if I add up the keys as 6 amber, the average amber and then average captured amber together to get numbers, the difference between the 2 decks is 9. So I tried 9 chains and I played 4 games with that, and there the average keys balance out identically, and Moose May Dude Brain will make a little bit more amber, but they came out an even 50-50 in matches across those 4 games. So it can handle up to 9 chains and still have a very even match.
Mm,
Hmm.
hmm. Do you? So how did those matches feel? Did it feel one sided for the deck that won, or did it feel like both decks had winning chances in each of these 4 games?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that uh, in those 4 chained games, uh, Moosemandude Brain, the answers were constrained. You have less cards, so it's harder to find the answers, but the answers were as good as they are in a normal heads-up matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the researcher value, the research value goes crazy when you have a 4 card hand.
Yep.
Being able to archive 1 to draw extra cards, so good. So I didn't feel the impact has changed probably as much as I would have in a non-researcher deck. Um, but it came at 50-50, and the 2 gang leader wins where it's still just kind of getting over the edge, getting over the hump just before Moosemandude could really rein it in. And the 2 Moosemandude Brain wins where I've set up a board and can get value out of it, and you still aren't stopping me, even though I'm chained down with 9 chains.
So do you think 9, to take this from the 80-20 that it was, unchained,
Mm-hmm.
how many chains do you feel would put it at 50-50?
That is an interesting question, and I think that it's I think 9 is close, and it might be a little too much on Moosemandude Brain, but um, anywhere between probably 6 and 10, you're within 60-40. You're probably not at the perfect 50-50, but across any small sample size, you won't notice a difference.
Mm-hmm.
The games will feel tight; they'll feel close. So it's hard to and I think about this when I'm bidding. It feels hard to put a exact point on this is going to be a 50-50, but easy to get within a 60-40 range of chains.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's kind of a reasonable goal. And we do like to talk about chain bids as if there is one exact right number. And theoretically, yeah, maybe there is if you played, a million games and could find the right one. But you're getting down to gambling a little bit when you're talking about smaller sample sizes and trying to make a guess at where to land. And it probably is more of like a 4 chain range, maybe even maybe even 5 to 6 chain range where you could say, yeah, there's on a given matchup, we're within 60-40, maybe 65-35, and there's going to feel like there are winning chances, even if you lose, which is why I asked you kind of how those games felt. You said the 80-20 games, it felt like Moosemandude Brain was really in the driver's seat.
Yeah, there are definitely a good set of games that Moosemandude Brain won where it was never losing. There was no way. Maybe it hits a big rant and rive as Gang Leader pushes for key 2, and then it's just in control the rest of the way because it when it can get a big board together, it can really convert that into a win pretty quickly. And the Gang Leader wins as it is a tempo deck. We're always on a knife's edge. You're maybe just barely getting over the edge, but hard to, even in the games where it kept Moosemandude to 1 chain, that was more Moosemandude not getting its act together than Gang Leader just really punishing what Moosemandude Brain was trying to do.
Makes sense.
So what does it say then for chains as a balancing mechanism, or maybe just for Keyforge in general, that the range is so big? Like I kind of felt like 6 was going to be a pretty fair game. You're saying 9. We think it could probably go up to 10. Like JT, you mentioned 4. So there's a wide range here. So like there's not a right answer. Is that a bad thing for chains as a balancing mechanism?
I think that's a good thing. I think that you just got to get in the ballpark, and then the chains are not going to be the thing that decides the game if you can get within that range. Like so many other things are going to come up over the course of the game that we love in card games, the order that the cards come up, or the play decisions that you make. It just gets deck out of the way enough to let luck and skill matter the way you want them to.
That's very well said.
Totally agree. Yeah, well said indeed.
Yeah. One other question then for you. We talk about like getting it to 50-50, like to completely mitigate the deck aspect, but like what do we think is the right mix? Because like an 80-20 match is pretty skewed towards 1. If the perfect chain bid gets you to 50-50, like what is an acceptable ratio for any balancing mechanism? Are we trying to get to 60-40, or are we trying to get a little bit better than that?
I like 60-40. I think that's a good target to shoot for. But uh, eh, I'm not sure I have a super specific answer for that one.
Yeah,
Maybe JT has a different answer.
No, I mean sloppy science here. This is not backed by anything, but 60-40 feels pretty reasonable as a benchmark. I mean, if you and I are both looking at an Archon, a pair of Archon cards, we haven't played any games yet. If we can get to 60-40, like that's pretty good. Like that feels pretty good to me. Even 65-35. I think once you start getting closer to like, yeah, I'm winning 3/4 of the game, and there's a tipping point where it feels like you just don't have those winning chances. As long as you feel like you've got winning chances in the matchup, I think you can still have a good time. And the balancing mechanism is creating a situation where both players are feeling like there's a competition happening. Then at a game level, like you're doing well. At a competition level, I think you do want it a little bit tighter. But for sort of like we're sitting down to play a game where we're both going to have a good time. As long as both players feel like they have winning chances, that's great. And certainly, like you can, your mindset can play a big factor in that too. Like I enjoy going into a match knowing that I'm an underdog, right? And I feel good about making a key or doing the cool thing or like making a learning something about my deck, and like that's awesome for me. But yeah, in a competitive setting, I feel maybe better about something that's closer to 60-40 after the balancing mechanism gets applied, especially if there's some kind of skill measurement, skill expression in kind of where we land with the balancing mechanism. Yeah, totally. But no,
I think that high skill in Kagi is getting us close to 50-50 every time. I think the players are that cutthroat that I had a couple of games this season where I could see the percentage odds of like, well, here's my 50% I win, here's my 50% I lose. Like it's right there.
Well, I mean, sitting here with two of the quarterfinalists, I can't say anything, I guess.
Well, you were a finalist last season, so you can say a few things.
Hey,
that's true.
I said my things last season. This season, I got to do things.
And Bruce, you got the best of me in the pod phase this time
I
around.
did. The only one.
I think I'm literally 0-4 against you in Kagi games.
I think that's right.
Literally never beaten you in a single game.
Small sample size.
I mean, that's 2 matches, 4 games.
Yeah.
So
you got 2-0 twice?
I got 2-0 twice by Bruce. Yeah.
Holy moly.
I know. So like, I'm happy to have you on, but I'm not sure if I'm rooting for you this week.
You got to root for whoever. Yeah, is it Holly Stewie?
Well,
Quick Draw's wearing the Holly Stewie.
Working in your favor is that I don't think I've ever beaten Holy Stew in a game either. So
there you go. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So you guys are gonna have a great match. I'm looking forward to watching that.
Yep. I'm looking forward to playing it.
Very cool.
And you guys are playing Saturday, as I understand it.
Hopefully.
26.
Add a lot of question marks to that Saturday,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I would endorse it.
There will be some coverage of that, whether that's Smurf or Orion or Ember Meaties. A lot of people have done some great coverage for the Kagi Top Cut so far. It'll be somewhere. So
if people want to see Game Leader coverage, the last round with that Orion streamed, featuring Game Leader doing its best.
Very cool. Wait, the last round from the top 8?
Yeah, I played it against Sith of Angmar. It was mirroring Untamed Sanctum Shadows decks, but he had a Vault Master deck.
Nice. Well, I don't think I watched that one, but I'm gonna go back and watch it now that I'm more familiar with Gang Leader.
There you go.
This was a beautiful interaction. Quick Draw pretending like he doesn't have his scouting calendar filled out already. Moosemandude pretending like he doesn't know the score. He's like, oh, it was 4-0. That's right.
Yeah, it was 4. I keep a close eye on the Kagi Discord server, and when there's a stream going up, I drop what I'm doing and pull it up.
Nice. Well, we may get a chance to play Moosemandude Brain and the Gang Leader that undermines Sincerity against each other later this evening. That feels like it'd be a very appropriate showdown.
Definitely does, 100%.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And Moosemandude is a great deck to play in Hand and Brain because its name is literally Brain.
could not have been more on the nose than that.
So, I think we will play another game. Do we want to touch on anything else before we wrap up the podcast portion?
I think I've hit the notes I came with.
Feeling good.
So we have a sponsor then? Like this is an actual sponsor as opposed to the previous
thing
that ended up being a sponsor?
Oh, we do have a sponsor actually. Yeah, I can tell you all, folks. This episode of Bottom Beaker was brought to you by Bonnie Thing, the Crucible's finest clothing store for aspiring thieves. Specializing in sleek, stylish outfits for the smallish scoundrels, Bonnie Thing offers everything a pint-sized pilferer needs to look the part, from pocket-sized cloaks to sneaky soft shoes. Each piece is crafted for comfort and concealment, whether they're planning their first heist or just blending into the shadows. Bonnie Thing has them covered. Literally, dress sharp, steal sharper. Indeed. Has anybody ever called you a Bonnie lad, Moosemandude?
That has not happened yet until just now.
Till just now. I don't know, Quick Draw. Maybe you got to head on down to Bonnie Thing and get yourself something for Halloween next week.
Does Bonnie Thing sell any jewelry? Perhaps any chains? Anything like that?
Chains, things that go clink while you're on a heist, are probably not going to fly. But maybe. You know, do you? So serious question here. Do you always say Bo Knithing or do you ever say Bonnie Thing?
For me, it's always been a thing, I think.
Blank stares tell it all. Very good. Well,
Yep.
I just say Bo Knithing. I don't ever say Boney Thing. I don't say Bonnie Thing. Bonnie Thing is, it's not called Bonnie Thing. It's Boney Thing.
oh, this is the.
I mean,
the Scottish.
the store is
yeah.
the store is Bonnie Thing. Yes, but the card itself. Just want to be clear that the card itself is not Bonnie Thing. Right?
You tell me, Quick Draw. I don't know.
It's not.
Times may be changing.
Very good. Well then, folks, too, I want to also let you know that Bottom of the Beaker is recorded live on Wednesday evenings at 9:30 Eastern Time right here at twitch.tv/sloppylabwork. You can find recordings of our past shows and other streams over at youtube.com. We are at sloppylabwork over there. And for the very best content, 34? No. 57 times distilled and straight from the bottom of the beaker. You can search for that very phrase in your podcatcher of choice. And Moosemandude will be there with the juice for you. Thanks so much, Moosemandude, for joining us this evening. Absolute pleasure. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor. Play more adaptive.
That's right.
Indeed. And Quick Draw, got any words for the folks getting off of the final audio stop?
Also, thanks to Bruce. It's been great. I really appreciate you giving us this idea and being willing to come on and talk about it with us. So thank you very much. And everyone listening out there, please stay sloppy.
Stay sloppy indeed. All right, we're going to cut the old Zencaster recording. Very good. Adjust the layouts. And now it's time to put on the old gloves for fisticuffs, as it were.
Yeah. So we're going to play Moosemandude Brain versus the gang leader that undermines sincerity. I think, JT, you agree we'll give the guest their option of which one they'd like to play? Yeah?
How can I say no?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
So
I forgot to ask. Quick Rod, did you run your heuristic on this matchup?
Oh, I did. Yeah. It is potentially exposing a new flaw in my heuristic model.
Nice.
So the heuristic came out as 2 chains for Moosemandude.
Wow.
And
Yep.
I think that could partially explain why my personal bid initially came out at just 3.
Sure.
I think perhaps, obviously the heuristic is modeled on my strategy, and maybe that's why I underbid on it. So I do need to explore why I and my model both are underbidding in this one. So yeah, something for me to think about.
There you go.
I think
So
I
yeah, what do we got? Moosemandude ahead in amber control, but behind in amber-genic
Yeah.
creatures.
I'm
Okay.
wondering if it's the amber control is really the reason why I undervalued it, because amber control is not something I normally look at.
Mhm.
But I think, like you talked about, the rant and rives are very important. The Mars needs ambers could come in pretty big if there's a lot of damage getting on the sanctum.
Gang leader wants to damage some creatures, but in this
Yeah.
matchup needs to not.
Yeah, exactly.
Foils the Dharmas.
So yeah, so
Interesting.
it was base 4 for the Moosemandude, and then I subtracted 2 for the expected amber from the gang leader, so that puts it down to 2.
Yep.
Added 2 back for the creature count in Moosemandude, so that was up
Sure.
to 4. And then it went back down to 2, I believe, from the creature control since gang leader. But maybe I just overvalued the creature control a little bit. Maybe
That
that
12
could
was
be.
a lie. That's just
Yeah. But
there's no,
I look at
yeah.
things like the double lights out were pretty good for me in the games.
Uh,
Sack of coins, if you burst at the right time with it, could be good.
sure.
Um, and then, like you talked about, they're everywhere, save the pack. But I think you're probably right that the 12 is a bit of a lie.
It's not the right 12. It's the wrong 12.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So that could be also where I went wrong. Maybe when I look at that heuristic of saying like subtract 2 because they have higher C, maybe I should have instead been looking at like the types of C. And I feel like I'd be pretty comfortable if my heuristic said 4. I feel like 4 is a pretty
Mhm.
close number that I would have felt good with that. So this could just be a problem of me not being disciplined enough to recognize the type of C that it was.
When I looked at this matchup before playing any games, I kind of wrote down 4 to 7, and I think I was like, yeah, I want to be on the higher end of that. So 7 was my like, this is my adaptive short bid. Um, but I don't think 4 was like feels unreasonable from where I was starting at. Though I think I don't know, maybe science will
If you
prove us
put
wrong.
the amber control disparity in there and bump it up too, then you get back to 4. So
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering is if maybe I should be factoring in a wide disparity in amber control as well. Could be. So JT, you're going to add that back to the podcast now? That a little bit?
I'll have to get it from the video recording. Perhaps I will. We'll see.
Maybe. Cloggin also gave you some stats that you asked for.
I know. I'm looking along there too. I'm gonna dig into this. So we've got 52K decks with at least one chain, and then we've got about 1,000 decks with power level 1 but no chains. Interesting.
I think that means there. What does that mean? I forget what that was. Not sealed, because you get. No, you don't get chains from sealed, do you? Gang leader, you said you played in a sealed vault, and it has no chains on it, even though it was 4 and 2.
I don't think you get chains from a vault. Period. So, and I think if you play in a vault, you get power level 3, no chains.
How would you get
So
to power level 1?
Power level 1's probably a chain bound, and you lose.
Maybe it's a prime. I think you have to like get top cut or win to get somewhere. I think you're probably a power level 3 for getting top 16.
I think power level 3 is just you played in a vault tour. I think every vault tour deck immediately gets power level 3. This doesn't matter anymore because we don't do it. But I think I have some prime decks as well.
JT, you can no longer search DOK for power level.
Gah, curses.
I know. That would make things easy, wouldn't it?
Now I have to remember the deck name.
I have a 0. Yeah. So for a prime, I have 0 power level, 0 chains. So that's not it either. I spiked a 3-deck sealed triad prime 8-person and took it down.
Nice.
Did not get to go to Worlds though. Thanks, COVID.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah,
that's a sore one for a lot of people. I only played in one major organized event before the hiatus, and that was a prime. It was about 2 hours from my house, and I scrubbed out back then. Learned some very valuable lessons about Pit Lord though, so it's okay.
There you go.
It's the little things, the Pit Lords, the Cease Forges, these interactions that really.
Yeah.
But what a great idea the team events were. Like, I would love to see that become a thing again.
For sure.
I mean, I know it's not balancing related, but of a sort.
There's adaptive in there if you want.
It's adaptive in there. And I think this is more of a smoothing of results, but like, I love, 3-person team playing best of 1 games as a way to get you something that feels more like a best of 3 outcome. So you get a little bit more of like a smooth out, get some consistency there.
Similar to KTL, but KTL is best of 3 for each match.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Playing the game. So, Bruce, which deck would you like to be playing?
Give me the brain.
All right.
Moosemandude brain.
All right.
Nice.
We get the AOA deck, JT. And since we're playing AOA, I feel like, and also since I played as the hand last week, I feel like you should play as the hand this week.
Okay. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Moosemandude, I will make a game in beginner with the password sloppy.
Sounds good.
Hands open, please.
Hands open. Show hands to spectators so that we can get all the cheats.
Yep. That's how we always win.
All right. Oh, wait, I'm not Moosemandude. Wait, I am the gang leader. Yes. The yummy AOA deck.
Yep.
And so, did you make this adaptive?
I didn't, but we can settle up in
Got manual mode for that.
manual.
Yeah, we'll manual mode it.
So, yeah. How should we do it? I think we should not go full 9. I'm happy going like 7,
Whoa,
6
whoa,
or
whoa,
7.
whoa, whoa! Why don't we bid? You just want to bid?
I mean,
We have to bid.
all right. But it's like
Do you want to make this the first episode of this season where we don't actually bid?
What does bidding mean? Like he's got to play the brain. He's got to play Moosemandude brain. We just keep going higher. He's like, all right, I guess I got to bid just so I can play the deck I was assigned.
How much? Okay, let's.
Oh,
maybe we shouldn't just have you play. Maybe we should play this adaptive best of one and maybe not take away the choice from Bruce.
I mean, if you're going to be
Works
that
for
mean
me.
to our guest, that's on you.
I like both these decks, so it's a win-win either way.
Yeah.
All right, back to adaptive short. New game.
All right. Good
All right,
game.
new game.
JT's messing with your win rates on TCO.
My win rates. Moosemandude brain has a sky-high win rate already after
Nice.
just beaten down.
Showing spectators, adaptive best of 1, beginner, very good. I'll still bring the gang leader. The heuristics being challenged to stick with the heuristic.
Well, I mean, like I said, there was a miscalculation because the heuristics are somewhat vague. So like they're up for interpretation. Like the creature control cards, the Amber Burst, like which one's you counting? So, I feel like it could go a few different ways. But JT, I think, what did we do last week with Hand and Brain?
I spoke out of turn. I moved out of turn here. Took the liberty of selecting Moosemandude brain, but I think that was by rights your decision, and I apologize profusely.
Okay,
and
that's fine. We were both bidding. We're both picking that one anyway. But as far as the chain bidding, does the hand or the brain bid the chains?
I am but a humble hand, sir. You must make these decisions.
Okay. All right. So let's bid. Let's go 1.
Okay. Should we do Kagi live rules and decide which deck's going first before we bid?
I think that's fair.
That seems like a good thing to do.
Okay. Nice.
So JT's gonna flip a coin. We're gonna trust that he's not lying to us.
Yes. Flip a coin. Boom. All right, Bruce. Call it heads or tails.
Heads for.
It is tails. Oh no.
Okay. Game leader's on the fly.
And we have no idea what that means, but okay.
So the gang leader goes first?
Gang leader goes first.
Yep, game leader's on the fly.
Okay. All right. Well, I still bid 1.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see the chain bids now.
All right. Up to 2.
We'll go 3.
We're gonna do this dance. I like it.
I like it.
I like it.
But what about 5? I think 5 could be fun.
Ooh, you just broke one of Bouncing Death Quark's rules.
I sure did. I've never done it in a Kagi match, but I'll do it here.
Wow. That's right, because you never have to bid chains in Kagi.
2 O's all the time.
Oh,
That's true.
O's.
Just 2 it all the time. Yep.
It's a novel experience. It's a little rusty.
I'll do 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 7 sounds good.
With gang leader going first. I think we can do this, JT, so I'm going to pass.
Okay. Pass. I bid pass. Oh, you get it. All right. And Moosemandude has won the flip and is the first player. That's not what we agreed, right?
No,
That's right.
All right. So
should
manual mode, please.
should talk to somebody who works on TCO and see if they can add in a different way to determine first player in adaptive.
You know. Okay. Manual mode, first player, JT Russell looks good. And all right. All good.
That's
Good,
Excellent.
good luck and have fun.
Good luck. Have fun.
Okay. Ooh,
Yeah, we're going to
interesting.
throw this one back.
All right, I need to do some adjusting to the layout here, folks. Apologies on that.
Use a side tangent to say that I don't think the difference between 6 and 7 chains really is that big. I think that's overblown.
I agree with that. Yeah. Especially, your first turn is, you're often going to be playing 2 cards. So, like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big difference. Well then, JT,
Well then.
you didn't do a very good job shuffling this.
Oh,
Yikes.
Some Ganglier hands, they look terrible.
They sure do. Let's go Shadows?
shadows we will. Right. Tempting. I'm just going to run out the old skeleton key and pass the turn.
Drew 3 cards in the same house. Feeling good.
I'm feeling very bad right now.
It's turn 2.
It's coming, Cloggin. Don't worry. It's coming.
Shadows.
It's coming right now. Let's see. Yeah. No? I thought maybe, All right, top of deck. What you got? Give me something good. Ooh.
Okay.
Praetor Marios.
I was really hoping for a Berserker Slam.
That would be good. Merkins in this matchup too often just hits one of the token cards, and
Put that there for now.
I don't think in all 40 games, I don't think I ever hit a Ranted Rive off of it.
That would be money right there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all right. We're gonna glimmer that for some value later. Don't you worry. Oof.
Okay. I feel like we dodged a bullet a little bit. A little bullet, but we'll go untamed.
Yeah, I'm happy to play this here. Wouldn't have minded smashing some tokens with it. Let's just run these out. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That looks about right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we'll hit the Merkins here.
Okay. All right. We'll go Sanctum.
Okay. We will. Interesting. Okay, I have Judgment comes down. We're gonna stun these dinos. Ambrosius. Scary. And my own dino, Sag. Had plans for that dino. I think we'll put the armor on Baron Mengvin and maybe make a spot for somebody to nestle up next to him.
I was thinking more of putting the Baron behind the Praetor, give the Praetor taunt.
Yeah.
That could have been interesting too.
Yeah, make him fight through the Praetor. Mm-hmm.
I find myself putting Protect the Weak on Gamgee more and more as I play.
Just for the elusive?
Just it's a pain to have to work through.
Interesting. All right, let's go shadows here.
Shadows, eh? Oofa doofa.
You don't like shadows here?
The Clog, and I can't remember the last time I reaped with the Gamgee. It playing the 40 games, that card does not turn sideways.
Oofa doofa. All right, let me take another look at my deck list here. Yeah. Okay. Ugh. Okay.
So you didn't want the Gamgee behind the taunt?
I did not. I have designs for that taunt spot.
Okay.
I'm gonna cash in on this eclectic while it's out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I would have been tempted to fight into the eclectic Ambrosius.
What? So actually, wait. I actually thought it was dying to the whistling darts. I must have been looking at the number of counters.
Yeah, counter's not.
I don't know what I saw. I was like, yeah, one more damage and that thing's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was the 3 counters. So that explains your confusion for why I was going shadows. Because I thought it was dying.
Yeah.
All right. Well then.
Put yourself on the back foot. That's for sure.
It's a flesh wound. It's a flesh wound.
I've had a lot of $5 plan, $5 blunders the last few weeks.
Interesting. Gourd. Huh. Yeah, that's cool too. All right, interesting options. I love the.
There are some options here. Yeah.
I love the middling. I love the AOA options that you get. Good stuff.
I will go Sanctum here.
Okay, I like Sanctum. Thinking. Looking at the old discard pile. Okay. Sanctum's been called. We're going to take some hostages. Oh, I think we fight into a killer or Paraguardian. Can't finish off the Paraguardian. Let's finish off Aquilia here. Get some extra value from the Shattered Throne, which is nice. Healing Blast is going to get some value. And then I kind of don't want you, maybe too early to let this go, but I just want to smash the Researcher. And this was the spot that I had in mind for the Taunter. We'll see if it ends up being problematic or not.
That's a good spot for it.
Okay, and that's that.
Well, I spent that entire turn trying to reconnect, so let's see what I missed here.
What do we do? Baron fought and killed the Achillea, and then got value from Healing Blast. Sormeros came down, take hostages, plus Shattered Throne, got captures on Baron Mengwin from the fight.
That sounds good. I like that. I like that turn. Here it comes.
Yep.
I wish I had one. Very, very unusual to not have one on schedule here, but
I thought for sure we were getting punished. Yeah.
Yep.
That's why you make
probably
me play
just
it.
locks up the game. If I had one on schedule.
Shock Herder, very cool.
Yeah, I think we're gonna punch here.
It's legit.
Expose that Marrows.
Fights off the Darna.
Yeah.
What a cagey player.
You haven't called on Tame in a while.
I like it. I like your style.
Oh, here we go. Yago Key. Let's go. Yes, he did it. I can't believe he did it. Oh, I love it. All right. Now I'm hyped. We're going to win this game now.
Tides are turning.
All is lost. All is lost.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. 2, 3. Yeah, let's go Untamed.
I like Untamed. I would like Untamed even more if I had my Darna. You know what I'm saying?
I know, but yeah, that's a smart play there to take out that Darna.
Yes, indeed.
I got to see a lot of Darnas fighting Researchers over those 40 games.
Yeah, I believe it. Okay, well, we are going to save the pack. Rosnar is going to come down, as is Flaxia for value. And Song of Spring. Considering the Flaxia, I think I just want to have the body on board, actually. We'll see. But we'll see if we can dodge another Rant and Rive. That would be pretty impressive.
2 for 2.
All right. Yeah, I liked it because he just went Brobnar. So I was like, let's push the envelope here and make him go back to Brobnar.
I would have very happily come back into Brobnar.
Yeah, I believe you.
Yep. Psychic Network for value. That's sweet.
That's still good value, yeah.
Can I get that Marrows off the table ever?
Absolutely not. Do not do it.
It seems unlikely, but if I do, it's going to look real good.
All right. Well, I know you like the blue key second, so we'll go blue key.
Wouldn't you normally go blue key second?
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Interesting options.
Again, I love it. I like these options.
could call Saurian. It's a thing we could do.
It's technically a thing we can do.
It's an option.
Um, you know, I think I like Untamed here.
Thank you. Yeah, love it. All right, get some glimmer value. I want that there everywhere, I think. Yeah. Any reason not to play it now? We're going to want to fight with the Rustnar. Okay, play that one first. Rustnar can fight into... Let's see, we just went Mars. I guess we'll take the Shock Herder out just in case we have some Stratusmaxer things. And we'll trigger the Shattered Throne first. And then smash the Shattered Throne. Probably get hit with Mars Needs Amber, but here we are.
I think I would have fought with the Rustnar into the Researcher first on the flank, and that way the Rebel would have been dead as well. You would have left him with the Shock Herder, though.
Yeah, I think I'm happier leaving the Rebel here than the Shock Herder, but then the reason being that I kind of want Sir Maros to be sticking around as long as possible. But could be making bad plays here.
There's some real tokens right there. Oh boy.
2 rant. Oh, please tell me they're both.
So
that would be hilarious.
For no particular reason, I'm going to call the one on the left rant. The
right Rive.
Yeah.
Both of the Marcy's Ambers are in the discard pile, so you did dodge that.
That is fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to check, I guess. Yeah, that is fortunate.
But yeah, no,
All right.
No R&Rs there.
Okay, let's think about the right way to do this. Let's go Shadows.
Okay.
I think I disconnected again. Nope, I didn't. Whew.
Okay. So Dust Chronicles is always going to be archiving here. Okay. Let's do that. We'll archive a card. Five, 6. Do I want to give you back that one?
Do you want to give back Rant or do you want to give back Rive?
I mean, if I go to 6, maybe both.
That's true.
I think that's what I'm worried about, though. Let's see. Just doing some quick calculating. So you've got the Shattered Throne dealt with. Mars Needs Ambers are both in discard pile. Ballistego, I think we have not seen. So that's a capture pip floating somewhere, I believe. Was it purged? Not purged. Okay. So Ballestego's in play as a capture pip. We haven't seen Faust either. Okay. So very likely we're seeing... Oof. Saurian here. I don't think we've seen your regrettable meteor arm the plebeians. We saw Symposium. So we did see regrettable meteor. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 Saurian cards accounted for. Okay. Faust is coming. Brachus is coming. Arm the plebeians is coming. Ballestego is coming. Okay, so this check's not going to be good for the win. I've already made a mistake then. Dang. Okay, I should have done this differently. Bummer. Well... gross. I think I still want a check though. So we'll give you back this Ironix Rebel. Ooh, Stim Ranger have we seen? Rebel and Researcher. Ooh. And then Sack of Coins to teal the rest. Capture on Marius here. Feels bad. So then you go capture and yeah, I dislike that turn, but I did it. Should have just
Sometimes you just
swindled.
gotta do it.
Yeah.
I didn't dislike it that much. I would not have captured on Marius. Just because the meteor's coming.
I think Meteor got played.
Meteor got discarded.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Meteor's gone by.
You're wrong about the enhancement, though.
Is it a damage?
It is.
Okay. Interesting.
So, did we dodge a bullet?
You didn't give me back the Faust.
Holy
wow.
moly.
Yep.
So was the Faust the token that was just destroyed?
Yep.
So you chose correctly then.
You gave me rant and put Faust in the bin.
Wow.
Skill game.
GG.
What can I say?
Skill game, yeah. Oh man. Yeah, you did have some outs there. I thought if Faust lands right there, I think that's major trouble. Is it not?
Faust feels like, well, if Faust gets a turn, I was counting a capture pip. Just Faust is okay. Faust plus arm the plebeians. No, you made... I don't know. I think just Faust there is okay without backup. But I think I still like the... actually... Did I swindle? I think I just like the swindle better that last turn. Because you can fight down... You could fight and kill the Marrows with a Stratasmack and your Bumsy.
Yeah. But I think both smacks are gone. My deck was 2 Mars cards. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I missed the smacks gone. Interesting.
So the Martians, just for the record, Martians gave you how much amber that turn? Just 2?
Just 2. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Rebel.
Yeah, I mean that range is like the 4 to 9. I feel like could really go either way.
Yeah, this game was not decided by the chains. It was decided by random drives being at the bottom of the deck.
Yeah.
I could have any number of chains. If I don't draw the random drives, if I draw one of them at either point, I think that this game looks totally different.
I was very I was not feeling good at all after the first 2 or 3 turns because we drew back into a 2-2-2, and I wasn't really seeing anything that I really wanted early until I think we started to get some 4-2 hands after turn 2 or so, and that's when I think things started to look a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, and in reality, right, if we had gotten hit with Rant and Rive for either of those first two checks, this just looks like a not very close game at the end, right? I mean, I think we're sitting here with a one ember difference. But yeah, would have felt very
Yeah.
different. I mean,
I think
And that's Sir Mero's also huge this game.
oh, true.
yeah,
True.
that's not something that I recognized in my games that Cermeros was that important, but you're right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Moosemandude Brain wants to reap to win, and Sir Mero's means you got to get him off the table first.
And the only way you can get him off the table really is fighting, right?
Yeah, fighting is definitely the main way you get him off the table, and he's often tucked behind a taunt, so you can hope to line up maybe a Stratus Mac into a Berserker Slam, or using Stim Raider to get him out from behind the taunt.
Okay, that's a good one.
That comes into play. Or
I'm only
sometimes,
realizing now that Lion Botrom could kind of be a liability against the Regrettable Meteor.
yep, that definitely comes into play sometimes.
That's some cool stuff.
Yep. I don't think I ever managed a destructive analysis to get to hit the Cermeris, but I do think it is also possible if you're able to burn like the two press gangs to get through to the Cermeros. That can happen too.
True. Yeah. Wouldn't be a bad choice.
Both press gangs, yeah, for an extra 4 damage. That'd be quite the play. Interesting. That was cool. That was a cool game, and felt like, good back and forth, meaningful decisions. I think even knowing that the two Rant and Rives are there, I feel like we were still doing the right thing to push our luck in those spots.
I think so too.
I don't think we had a way to stop at 7, unless I'm misremembering, because the first one we had the healing blast that gave us 3, so it was either 6 or 9. Maybe we stop at 6. And the second key,
So
we checked at
my
10.
style is to just make them play the cards, right? Like show me the Rant and Rive, and like if you have it, you have it.
Yeah.
That's how I generally play. I think it's a similar thing with TMTP as well. Like, I think too often people see TMTP in the list and they never want to go above like 7, but then they end up just taking you off check anyway, and you go out of your way to like try not to give them 3. You'd be better off just giving them 3 from the very beginning.
Behawk's like, yeah, 10. Go to 10. Maybe not 11, but 10 every time. Spicy man.
Yeah.
But Rant and Rive, I'm usually happy to push through. I think having some of the notes from you, Moosemandude, from before, saying how some of like
the problem with this one is that your gang leader only has so much amber to play with. So if you lose 4 of it, that is a critical 4 of the 22, 23 to push over the hump before you're spent as the tempo deck. You're just spent and you don't have the velocity to keep up. So
yeah,
sure. And I mean, we did have a little bit of a slower start, so I think that is like maybe further post justification for taking a risk that we're going to dodge the Rant and Rive. But
we also dodged a bullet whenever I didn't realize that you're going to gain 6 amber.
Yep, that.
I don't know how we got through that.
So yeah, I mean, our other options were not terribly appealing, but I mean, yeah, stopping 6 amber
is a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, it was like what? Call Sanctum, play a card and fight.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, had I recognized that, I would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you might have been able to call Untamed, but I don't know if we had any Untamed in hand.
You had a Darner sitting ready to fight, but
We did have a
you played
Darner ready to fight.
4 Shadows cards, so
Yes.
Yeah, it may have been one Untamed in hand, but I don't remember what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we had 1 Sanctum, so if we played 4 Shadows, then yeah, it sounds right.
But I don't remember what it was, yeah.
Let's go with Song
You'd be
of...
taking a very tempo negative turn either way.
Mm-hmm.
But at the
You would,
benefit
yeah.
of taking away 6 Amber, I think still would have been worth it.
Interesting one.
Definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, this is a cool matchup.
Yeah.
This was kind of fun to go deep on it too. Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, we'll wrap it up in the lab here then. Thanks for the chat, hanging out with us, and yeah, and thanks for sticking around to play a game, Moosemandude.
Of course.
It was good to chat tonight.
It was an honor. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. All right, chat. Signing off. We'll see you all in the lab. Peace.